I'm Dad.
I'm Daughter. Hey! How are you? I'm Kana Aloha. I'm your host of this wonderful, fun podcast. I'm an actress. I'm on the new hit show, Rescue High Surf.
Yes,
Watch me on. I am a student. I am a creative. I'm a creative director. I am a dancer, singer, and all-around theater girl to my core. And I'm with, today, like every other day,
Dad.
my dad.
Hello, gangy. Roger Watson, licensed clinical social worker, dad, coach, husband. Yeah, you can find me on WatsonTherapyServices.com.
Period.
But yeah, I'm Dad.
I'm Daughter, and this is
Daddy-Daughter
Kine
Kine
Tings. Yay! So excited to start this new year off with this podcast, and with this new year coming in, it's January. It's actually January 11th, so that's 111. Great day for manifesting. And when we go into this new year, every new year, these are angels right here with us always. We want to set goals. We want to create the new us, new year, new me, as people say. And that's what this podcast or this episode is going to be about.
Sure.
All of our goals that we're setting for this new year, what kind of experiences we've had in our past with each other and those goals, how we showed up, how we didn't. And we're just going to take you guys through our now, our past, our why, our what, and why we are here, who we are today, and how we got there.
Roger.
I love it.
Okay.
So, Dad, let's start with maybe what are some of your goals of this year?
Whew.
Yeah.
I guess, why do we have goals?
Yeah, why do we have goals?
I think that it sets us up, right? It sets us up for being accountable to things.
Totally.
Yeah. Sets us up for success, and goals, having goals, writing them down, setting them, whether it be personal or you share them, can be very productive for individuals, right? Mm-hmm. So, how do we have it for you folks?
Yeah. Growing up, I think we always talked about what we were planning on doing or kind of what was ahead. I think I remember the first time we switched schools was the first time maybe that I had a goal of mine of what I wanted it to look like. We went from a Catholic school to our first Hawaiian public charter school, and I think being told about that and what it was going to look like, my family and you guys have always been about visualization or what it's going to look like.
Yep.
So I think I learned that at a very young age of visualizing what this life that we're living and what the life we want to live is going to look like. I think we were always talking about things, but I never really got into the habit of writing them down.
Yeah. And I don't think I'm good at that as well.
Yeah.
Writing down. We've done vision boards, right? Put that up. Something you see first thing when you wake up in the morning. Vision boards. If you don't know, right, you cutting up. We did a family exercise where you're cutting up magazines of, athletes and money or houses. All the things that you want to obtain and create for your life, right? Yeah. We did that as a family exercise a few times, right? Personal. We were able to do those things as well for each of us as an individual. But I think goals were just something that was common.
Right.
And whether it be writing down or having them or talking about them was one thing that we definitely instilled and actually made it a part of our our dinners.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think
our family times, we did, and checking in on those. And then, when I think for us, as parents, it was when we heard it from the children, it was then we be aware of that and sort of support the goal and how we could support it to get them to get there in achieve those goals.
Yeah.
And then be aware of them, and monitor it, and really, help to foster it.
Yeah.
Right. Help to foster the goal in a way, so that, and what it really does too, right? For goals, it helps to build self-confidence.
Yeah.
Right. Self-esteem. You get to achieve certain things, long-term, short-term goals, right? Those things. And, we talk about SMART goals, right? Right?
Very much.
What is that? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time,
Yeah.
So, we try to implement those things for them throughout, early on in elementary, like you said.
Yeah.
And to make it a big thing, but not. Yeah.
Very much. I feel like I was going to say, it wasn't like I had these super big goals all the time. I think it was just kind of the standard that we had of ourselves and our family in general, and just like each other. So it was just like a part of our daily life, like striving for excellence, or just striving for who we wanted to be, or whatever that looked like, was just something that was always present, I think, in my life anyway. But
it creates purpose.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was to help to create purpose, and whether we talked about the goals or what they wanted, or wanted to obtain, like it was to create purpose, so that I think they continue to work on, and be striving for their best. It wasn't about being excellent, perfect, or whatnot. We just always talked about being their best.
Our best, whatever that looked like. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think I've seen that a lot in my siblings and I. I think something that what you talked about when you achieved those goals that I really liked is that you're gaining self-confidence, you're gaining this self-esteem, but you're doing something that you did for yourself. I think I'm finding that again now, is like doing things for myself, and like creating not only habits for myself, but then making myself proud. I think that's something that goals can do for you, and like it does for me. It's like even your daily goals that I've like started to set in my daily routines. It like makes me have my own back again, and tells me that like I can do it. I can do anything that I put my mind to, because I can do these little things as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And really is that, so how did I, as a dad or whatnot too, like you can share, is how could I, in the past, like learn from and be better, be more inclusive with?
Yeah.
Or, and then even now.
Yeah.
How to be inclusive in those goals and be a part of. Because naturally, right, like as a child growing up, then as an adolescent, and then now a young woman, like how much do you include your parents?
Right.
Especially then, how do you include your dad?
Right.
Like how does that? What is your thoughts? What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have many thoughts. I think when it comes to me personally, growing up, as not that it looks like it now, but I was definitely reserved in my thoughts and in who I share with, and like opening up just in general, because I was just a
well, like Kayana, if you guys don't know, she, as much as she wanted to be on stage and perform, she is reserved and shy, and at times nerve-wracking when she has to perform. But when she's in it, she's in it, and she could do it for sure. I remember preschool, right? The 4-year graduation, and she had to talk, and it was so devastating. Like she forgot her words and stuff to do. And as a parent, you struggle because you want to get up there and help her, and you don't want you see your baby crying and your baby fail, or in a sense, or be let down. But we can't necessarily rescue all the time.
we just talked about this.
We gotta and enable, but some of those words, but we gotta, build and allow some of that time for failure, right? But be there to pick them up and then shush them along, continue to shush them along, right?
Yeah.
But back to like what we were saying is how can you include, right? Like you're saying, like how can you include your dad or a dad for young women out there? For instance, like how do you view your dad, right? How do you view him as, or even for me, or to share to the young women out there, or even to parents, like what are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I've grown so much in just your presence in my life, and like how much I allow in, and everybody. I think that's one of my things that I am constantly doing, is allowing people in to see my fullest self. And so I think that is something.
Yeah, not to interrupt, but why do you feel like girls, I guess, too, right? Like how do you encourage that? But why do you feel like the girl, like, or someone like you, right? Whether it be girls or teenagers or adolescents, teens, tend to reserve and tend to not, share, especially with their parents. What do you think?
Well, I think girls specifically, I think it goes from when we're very, very little, when it starts with the vocabulary and the verbiage that we hear from adults, just in preschool as well. It's like boys will be boys, but girls, and there's been so many studies that have shown this, of some girls will, if they don't know it, they won't even try, but if a boy does it, they'll do it and they'll fail 9 times out of 10. And so that is something that I've kind of gone into, and this idea of the fact that we don't want to fail, that we're supposed to portray this like quote unquote perfect little girl, or have an image of ourselves. And I think we tend to shy away from our fullest self because we don't want to be too much, or that's what I hear, that's what I talk about with my girlfriends and other girls as well. And so I think my learning of that is that we are never too much, and that we have to start believing and shifting our mindset of, you're not too much. The people that think you're too much, they're just not your people, And I think that is something that has been is a key point of my learning of myself and who I am. And so for girls out there, that's one of my whys and one of my reasons or just something that I want to share out there. By being your fullest and biggest self, you're allowing other people to do that as well. And so for just me, that growth in being my fullest self has been a long time coming, but I've only seen benefits. I've only seen benefits in my family when it comes to, again, like I was talking about before, how I was reserved, how I was like not wanting to be outside. I was in my room. I don't have a lot of memories like out with everybody, even though we were together a lot, like at dinners and things like that. I just kind of was like on autopilot, which is something that I experienced again in college as well. And so coming out of that and becoming conscious of who I am, and the idea that I can be my fullest self, but it's an act. You have to actively do it. You have to actively make that decision to be who you are, and to show up as your fullest self, and to show up as you want to show up in love, in life, in light. And while we're talking about that relationship towards your parents and towards just your family in general, I think it's super important that I'm learning again too, that I'm allowing myself to be fully in, as I was saying, is I remember a shifting point in high school when I started to tell mom things. And it was like in the car, like I just remember it vividly. And Mom and I will say, like, we've always been close, but we haven't always been close. I think like kids, like girls, like anybody, we're only conscious truly at a certain point, I feel like. And we're growing that consciousness as we grow up. And like adults and at any age. But I feel like I wasn't fully conscious until just more recently, that I can look at how that was and how I was feeling in those times. But I think it was easy for me to connect to my mom because she is a woman, and I think that like first talks were like boy related, you know, and I was a lot closer to Grandpa, like we were kind of talking about last night with Uncle Kevin, because I was around him more, and so I think the allowing you in as a dad, I don't know that I really saw you around in my circle as much. I feel like I had people that I knew were there that were like pillars in my life, and I think for some time you just like weren't one of those. And not that I knew that you weren't there, but I didn't hear you.
Yeah. And if you guys don't know, right, Kaana's our oldest of 3, and and if you guys do know us, like as far as their Kaana was in theater, and the other 2 were into their sports, but Kaana played every sport. she had a dabble in basketball, she had a dabble in baseball, volleyball,
Cheer.
That was the first one. And then, and then played tennis and doing a little golf. And that's where Grandpa kind of came in. And, and it was kind of to what may have looked or appeared that Dad wasn't involved or whatnot is that, we're going to probably share a lot about our story between like our angels here as far as my in-laws go and then
Papa's
and Papa's up above my dad. However, like how important it was, and when we lost Grandma, who kind of is named after Kalonani, but Grandpa became Grandpa, after my mother-in-law passed away, and it really, for me was to give Dad an opportunity to be a part of the children's life, and he's an avid like tennis player, golfer. So we signed them up for the for youth golf, right? and Grandpa used to take you, right? Grandpa used to be involved and even was a little coach for tennis. With our other friends in the ones, so Grandpa was. Part of that, right, was not for me, and you kind of look at it not in regret, but to where that circle, right, like I wasn't involved, but kind of being there in the outskirts of lifting up and support, and helping along and where our roles were, and that's an important part too, like as a dad, like where your roles are within your family structure, right?
Yeah, totally. What are your priorities? What are your values?
Well, yes, and then also how do you, in the family nucleus, like how do you make it
work?
How you make it work? And so we had Grandpa, and Grandpa was inclusive in your lives and a very big part of our family. And so that it was a healthy relationship for Grandpa to have built with Kaana and the others as well. But that's where to really get out of Grandpa's strengths of who he was, what made him, the focus, the competitiveness, the intelligence of his was just how his involvement and how that can be passed down to the kids, and kind of got that from the very beginning. And so I know that's something that comes up for us, and like in a sense of rekindling or that having that connection and where that connection was, and you sharing that, it's sad to hear, but at the same point, that's why we're doing this in a sense to, not for us to make up or me make up what the time that I lost, and sometimes dads might feel like they have to, right? but I believe like how can we be more inclusive? I think the awareness is for sure.
Yeah.
Listen to your daughter, listen to your wife, or listen and be aware of those things and observe handily about those things. And yeah, it wasn't until more recently, right? And sharing the different things that I think Dad either experienced or was, a part of that. We have those connections, right? Like with Mom, of course, right? Our girls tend to go to Mom, and then look to Dad, or shy away from Dad because of discipline or whatnot, and
help.
or strength and comfort, right? And those are hopefully the things for sure that we provided. But now more recently, right, is guidance, being involved, like we're doing this.
Yeah.
Definitely out of my zone, right? Out of my box.
You're so good at it.
But yeah, I mean, shoot, we got to do that. Like at times, we got to get out of our box to be, show others that we care, we love, that we are interested, right? Even those times, right, of you being in theater, right, on how much, whether my involvement or non-involvement was, but definitely showing up for the shows and
crying at every single one of them.
Yeah, for sure. I still cry every time I see her on stage and now on TV. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's like I know that person and I hear that voice and you're like, what? But
I know that face.
But yeah, so I think you sharing those things, like definitely healthy for girls. Like, okay, like, yeah, maybe you don't want to, but what would you recommend? Like how would you share? Like my recommendations for dads, like what I just mentioned, was to be aware, listen, observe.
Yeah.
For me, I think some of it was unfamiliar, years before.
Yeah.
And so I think the stretching out of a comfort zone, maybe I could have done better or done more of. But what do you think from the girl's perspective?
Yeah.
What can you say or recommend?
I think when we talk about stepping out of your comfort zones and just like what maybe a daughter is seeing, I think love languages play a lot into this as well, and kind of how we are feeling love. And so one thing that I would recommend for dads first and foremost is maybe asking questions, because I feel like sometimes we want to share but don't know. For me anyway, it's like, do they want to know? Like, do they want to hear? And this is like for anybody, And so I think to start the ball rolling, because as you're childing or you're parenting a child, sometimes it's not always on them when they're 13, but as you're growing into, as these teenagers are growing up, sometimes I would also recommend step out of your comfort zone and just start sharing, because I feel like that is something that I've done more recently, is just like sharing what's been going on, because your dad and your parents want to know about you. They want to know, this is your validation, this is me telling you. Your parents want to know what's going on with you. Your parents want to hear how you're feeling, hear what you're going through, and help you through that. And sometimes they just want to listen. I know this recommendation of before you share, if you don't want advice, if you're a teenager, if you are kind of going through something that you just want to rant, you say, I just want to rant, I don't want advice, but I just want to talk. And I think that level of communication, that level of awareness of what you need, is very beneficial for any relationship, and especially a daughter and father relationship, when it comes to sharing things that maybe you both are a little bit uncomfortable with.
Yeah, and for sure. And I think dad's right is to be available, right?
Yeah.
And I had mentioned that. And so that it's not just so caught up in our own things, to make time to listen, ask the questions, right? I don't think we're do enough of. And then be more inclusive, so we're not dependent on mom or our wives or girlfriends to just do that for the daughters. Like, definitely know and could have done better, but worked on improving that, right? Being there, being present. And there are things for sure we don't want to know. You only can
share
handle
so much, right?
Probably gonna talk about that more in some other episodes, especially like I don't know, next month,
Valentine's Day,
and love and relationships. But there are things, so we'll talk about those things. But ask questions. Make daddy-daughter dates.
Yeah.
Fun things like that, to be inclusive. Like, we don't know, we don't have to make like we know, and you don't have to have the answers either. A hug, a kiss, those things can go such a long way for sure, with your little ones, and especially for your daughters, to feel that strength and safety and security for sure.
Totally.
But I think that's a good pointer. So.
Yeah. A lot of my friends, actually, to that point of going on daddy-daughter dates, a lot of my friends that have these relationships with their dads, they do activities. Like, a lot of times, I think dads find comfort and ease of doing things with their daughters, or just like having something to bond over. So I definitely noticed that in a lot of my friends' relationships with their dads, that I think it's an easy gateway to just be with each other. I think just like that closeness, girls and daughters, we like to feel like someone is there, or just like someone's presence, possibly like your dad's presence. And so actively also, asking, and finding out things that they want to do, or like finding out things that you want to do that you invite your dad to.
Yeah, because then that actually brings out the attentiveness, right? So that you are, you can build interest and awareness of what they're doing, the things that they like. It may not be like what you like,
right?
Either, but
both y'all.
One or the
both
other.
Sides.
Both sides, to give and take. But that's relationships too, right? That's how relationships are. It's between partners, between your own relationships that you're involved in, and I think more importantly, right, for our dads that are single dads, separated, like, there's that balance of being dad, being fun dad, being excursion dad, or all that kind of stuff. But we encourage you for sure, like, make that time to do things, and some dads, that's what they're great at, and some dads need to listen more.
Yeah, again, into these, how we're showing up for each other, how we're feeling that in different relationships, and especially daddy-daughter relationships. I think it's important for these girls too to step out of our comfort zone in a way, but know that, I think just the underlying knowingness that your dad loves you. You know what I mean? Like, your family loves you.
And it's not how you start, but how you kind of grow together and finish too, right? Because honestly, the girls at a young age not gonna do it. Not gonna do too much. Their daddy's girl in the beginning, and then we go through different phases, right? So I'd say dads, continue to be consistent.
Yeah.
Totally.
And
I think it's a really big part of love, letting them know you're there. I think that's what we're hearing here, is being present, right? In a sense, and asking the questions goes for both sides, right? For dads, asking questions so that they feel, and then sometimes daughters can be like, sassy and all that kind of stuff.
Holomua.
Yeah. You gotta, dad's gotta be resilient about that, right? Like, and not to take that too personal, and really just know to have it. I think is really ingrained that the girls need their fathers, and know that they need you, want you. And right, and then that you hold on to that, until forever, I guess, right?
Yeah.
You know, not that like, and you're gonna have those hills and valleys and everything. But yeah, I think that's the thing for our episode today is for dads to be consistent,
Yeah.
to be present, and to let them know that that you're there and that you care, and not too much, right? Not
Yeah.
too much, but
Feel it out.
that subtleness of being included or wanting to be included, I think.
Yeah.
But also
Showing
be ready,
interest.
be ready for
Anything.
anything, right? Crying, sobbing, snappies, or all of the above, right? But
Strongest soldiers.
yeah, stay there. Oh, excuse me, but stay in it.
Yeah.
Stay in it to win it, right?
Totally. I think ending with this, like these goals, I think one thing that I would recommend is to share your goals. Sometimes it's hard, I feel, to share what you're thinking and where you want to go, but it's the easiest way to have your goals be achieved, because when you have other people that are rooting for you as well and that know what you're going for, when you take on any new endeavor, any new thing, having that support of your family especially and your dad, I think something that would help me, that maybe would have helped me if I had said those things, was that accountability partner of like, oh, did you do that? You know, oh, how is this going, right? And so I think sharing it with one another so we can achieve our goals together is something that,
and I think for dads, for goals, you know, my thought is to ask, you know, ask your daughter so many times a week, right? Maybe, you know, at least once a day, maybe, or, you know, so many times a week, how their day is going. How can daddy help you? You know, that's a good goal, and a small short-term goal to kind of to work up. You know, for 2025, if you haven't, you know, seen or talked to your daughter in a while, like, you know, send them a text. Call them, right? Like their Instagram or something, or their TikTok, right? Share it, right? But yeah, the challenge, you know, for that would be, you know, to be inclusive, right?
Make yourself known.
Yeah.
I think one question that I asked a lot of my friends, a lot of the people that I love in this coming year, was that maybe you can ask your daughter and you can ask your dad possibly, is what are you bringing into 2025 and what are you leaving behind?
Good one. What am I leaving behind? I think I'm leaving behind some weight. I tried to get that for sure.
Come on.
That's definitely been productive for me, is getting back, you know, not necessarily in shape, but moving around. So I bring, you know, a healthier me into this year. And, you know, we always talk about that kind of stuff, right? Health and whatnot. But we also bring this. We bring this here into this new year. Of
opportunity.
You know, opportunity, yeah. You know, or just like for sure, just excitement of this, you know, Daddy-Daughter Kine Tings, and I think that's a good start for me, and right off of the top of my head of leaving that behind. I think that's
any like mental, like your mentality that you're going to leave behind, or some mentalities that you're going to bring forward?
Well, after this episode, right, is being more aware and thoughtful, inclusive, you know, into this 2025 with my daughters. Leaving behind that, I guess that, not uncaring, but like that, that it'll be okay, or like the simple-mindedness of like not having to be inclusive, I guess, right? So I'm leaving it behind, not being inclusive, and being inclusive into 2025.
Come on, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, ask me.
Okay. what are you leaving behind in 2025 and bringing into 2025?
I am leaving behind thoughts of other people or putting other people's thoughts before my thoughts of myself. And not believing, or just like not allowing myself to be like the fullest, to get to my fullest potential, like putting barriers in front of myself so that I don't get there, and procrastinating. She's out for 2025. And I am bringing in an ease of knowing where I'm supposed to be, knowing and being grateful. I'm bringing in gratefulness of every single day, of every little thing, and mindfulness. And because we're not guaranteed every day. I think we've been reminded of that a lot in this just new year. And so I'm bringing in being grateful for every day that we have, especially with our loved ones, and showing up as my fullest self.
Yeah, so our prayers go out and blessings go out to our families out there in California.
Yeah.
The lost ones that from our New Year's Eve fireworks accident, and to our young firefighter that we lost,
And our pilots.
Definitely,
pilots.
those young pilots who, yeah. So,
Meke aloha. Thank you for coming on this journey with us. We're so excited. This is going to be a roller coaster of emotions, a roller coaster of stories of mo'olelo, of people, of our experiences. We're definitely want to remind us and everyone out there, if you're on this journey of building relationships with anybody, whether that be with your dad, with your daughter, with your family members, with your partner, to lead with grace, that having conversations and this communication and open communication is the only way that you can really connect or to know each other to a different level. And
yeah, good one.
And I think we're leading with that into this podcast, and we hope that you come along with us with that. And thank you for watching this episode. I'm so excited for this journey.
I'm Dad.
And I'm Daughter. And this is Daddy-Daughter Kine Tings.
Aloha, Gengi.
Hui ho.